Lily,
Approve.
Dwayne,
Approve.
and I approve, so that's unanimous. And then there's no public comment. And so I will move on to Barb with her principal report.
Hey, everybody.
Off my dryer, so you guys don't have to listen to my laundry.
I can bring mine over if you need more. I can bring mine over. So we have had quite a busy month. We've had a few students move into the district, and we've had a few students move into Virtual Academy. You should be aware that right now we have a waiting list for 2 students to join 3rd grade in person. And at this point, kindergarten, 1st grade are really tight. I would say they would be having a waiting list if anybody else comes in. But we continue to see the trend that you may have been reading about in the papers, where people are bringing their children to our district because we're in person 5 days a week. So that's been good, I believe. The COVID Sentinel testing, we continue to see great results. Many of the staff who are eligible are signing up for the COVID vaccine, and certainly Melissa's helping them. I did share with Christy and Mark earlier today that we do have 3 students, 2 2nd graders and a kindergarten student in quarantine because they were in close contact with a COVID positive person. So there aren't any classroom changes at this point. Currently, we're still looking for long-term subs for both buildings. We have hired Kylie Herman, who's our basketball coach and has been hired as a special ed tech for the remainder of the year. We'll begin to start advertising for openings in mid-March. For school culture, if you've driven by the school, you've seen lots of hearts and lots of snowflakes. Just before vacation, we had Why I Love Our School while students dressed up in pink, purple, red, and white. So that was kind of fun. And on February 12th, the day before our break, you may have remembered how cold it was. And we had planned on doing hot chocolate, and it was we were going to do it outside. We had it all planned, kids could take off their masks outside and do it before school, and it would be a great, great thing. Well, of course, it was so cold, we had to be inside. So we still did it. Kids were in the pajamas for the day as part of our school spirit. And things have been going, I think, pretty well in that regard. Town halls, the hospital hosted one on Monday, February 22nd. The information, again, was pretty much in keeping with what you're reading in the Bangor Daily and what we're hearing. Academic updates, I'm really excited. The specialists are working with Barnarts and Cora Saul from the Rural Aspirations Project, and they're developing an end-of-year cross-disciplinary unit of study geared towards the 8th grade. We have been looking at our current winter NWEA scores, again, identifying students who may need support for the remainder of the year. We've had outdoor classroom experiences. Deb Mountford's kindergarten class begins each morning by taking a nature walk. Grade 5 worked on the frozen classroom on Soames Pond with Billy Halperin. And they were doing ice fishing, land-based economics, survival, shelter challenge, watershed activity, winter adaptation with the snowshoes we purchased. So that was a lot of fun. Grade 8 actually will be doing it this Friday. And then this afternoon, we had an amazing school speech contest. And it was, I'm telling you, the 7th and 8th graders really rocked it. It was wonderful to see. The district competition is going to be on March 4th at 4. We have finished our basketball season. We're going to have a celebration on March 3rd. Clubs, Helen Jolly is going to be doing a night walk on March 3rd from 7 to 8 at Schooner Head. And civil rights team continues to meet, so that's been great. Professional development, we're doing a lot, and it's because we've been able to offer a lot. We're doing, some staff have just completed a 4-day afternoon, 1.5 to 2 hour each afternoon, beginning the journey of nonviolent communication. There's another section that's going to happen in April. Several staff members are taking Lynn Lyons on Helping Anxious Kids, and that's a 15 hours of actual time in a webinar and then additional work after. The main curriculum leaders have an anti-racism study group with Alva and Akira Rosales. There's Moving Beyond the Moment workshop series with Amber Coleman Mortley that's sponsored by the Maine Department of Education. And Heinemann just offered a Never Too Young to Think social literacy for young learners in a mini workshop. So there's a lot going on. Plans are underway for spring activities through the PTSA, which will be done remotely. Trying to think what else real quickly. We're replacing the small handicap lift in Connors Building as we speak. You may have heard about many of the N95 medical grade masks being recalled. Approximately half of what we received have been recalled. We're continuing to offer food boxes to virtual students in backpack. We received about 150 we purchased, but we received them finally. Our new Chromebooks for grades 4 through 6. Those were purchased through the CRF funds. And no changes to the transportation. So.
I had a couple questions for you, Barb.
Sure.
My notes were, well, I just wanted to say, well, one note that the 3 kids who are quarantined came into contact with somebody outside of school. I just want to make sure that was, it's not a staff member in school.
No.
And then I just wanted to say, I love the outdoor classroom that the kids are ice fishing and because I often look at my own kids and think, I just took them skiing the last weekend of February vacation. Now, my kids have lived in Maine for 15 years and this is the first time they've gone skiing. So I love that, you know, some of these kids never, when I was a Boy Scout scout leader, I took my Boy Scouts who all grew up in Bar Harbor across the sandbar at low tide, and none of them had ever done it before. Yeah. So I just think so many people don't get out and about here the way we think they do. And so I love that you're taking this time to get them out and about. And if you could get them on a lobster boat in the spring, I think that would be awesome too. But, my question was about the professional development that the teachers are doing. Is that all outside of their regular working time? Do they have to like participate in evenings or weekends? That's all outside.
Yeah, currently that is all outside of school.
I just wondered if we were providing it like in school somehow, or no, it's all outside of school.
Most of it is, you know, you can dial in and do it on your own time, or it's like I'm doing the MCLA one, so that's meeting once a month right now from 5:30 to 7. And then there's another one, the MDOE one is meeting 4 times each Wednesday from 7 to 9. And then the Lynn Lyons workshop seminar is totally at your own pace.
And we're paid for all those, right?
Yes.
I mean, and I'm glad we do. I'm just following up on, even though it's on their own time, that's all paid for so that they get their hours in whatever they need.
Yeah, and also I should note that many support staff are taking these offerings.
Oh, good. Does anybody else have any questions for Barb? Nope. All right. I don't have anything under the school committee chair. I don't believe, I keep pushing this off, and I'm really not pushing it off. I really do believe the school renovation building project we do need to talk about now that we're hopefully done discussing the budget after today, I think. But I'm still trying to figure out the best way to, it'll probably be on the agenda for April. And then we'll have to decide whether we need additional time, like an additional, you know, workshop that gives us more time to just focus on that or not. We'll see where that comes. It might be a quick conversation or it might be a long conversation. I'm not really sure where it's going to go right now. So we'll have that on the agenda for April. And then ready for your update, Rachel or Edie, whoever's giving the update. The TES Educators Against Racism are back this month to give us additional information. And so I think I'll turn it over to them and they'll work it out with Josh.
Yes. Okay, Edie and I are co-presenting, but I'm going first. So hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. We are so, Mariah and Kara and Anna reported back after meeting with you all last time, and they said you were so enthusiastic and so supportive, and your questions were so thoughtful. So we're just so excited to share our work with you. Thank you for having us. So Josh, if you wouldn't mind going to I guess it's the second slide. I apologize to Julie because this is like a shtick I do like everywhere I go. So Julie has heard it, but maybe no one else in the group has. So Dr. Kendi in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, has this very powerful framework that Anna shared with us in the summer when we first started this work. And it's been so powerful for me. So I want to take a minute to share it with you all. So he defines a racist as one who supports a racist policy through their actions or inactions or expressing a racist idea. And I think we're all pretty comfortable with that language, right? I think we all know what racism looks like in that way. And like nobody wants to be racist. Like racist is like really bad. It's like an ugly word. And I don't know about you, but anytime I thought I've done anything racist, I just feel sick to my stomach. I feel like a terrible person. I feel like a broken human. Like I feel like there's no coming back. And it's just like, it's a terrible, terrible thing to be a racist. Nobody wants to be a racist. But then Anna introduced Dr. Kendi's kind of like counterpoint to that of an anti-racist or someone who supports an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. And that was very powerful. So Anna was really talking about it in the context of our little ones, right? Or our students. Mine are little ones, but hers are a little bigger, right? So we don't want that feeling that I have when I think I've done something racist. We don't want children to feel that way. And we don't really want any of us to feel that way because we're human beings and we make mistakes, right? And we live in a structure that is out of our control, right? So of course we're gonna have adopted problematic ideas, right? We're getting them from all over the place. So it's up to us to shift it in ourselves to make this choice to be anti-racist. It's not enough to be not racist. It's enough what we want is to be anti-racist. And that doesn't mean that we're not gonna make mistakes and we're not gonna cause harm because that's part of the work, right? But if I am so rigid in this like sense of like, I am not a racist, because if I were a racist, it would totally destroy my identity. Well, then I can't learn, right? I can't take feedback. I can't make mistakes. And I'm passing that on to my students, right? If they ever say anything out of ignorance or stereotyping or, a mistake, are they going to feel the way I described feeling? And that's not productive for anybody. Nobody learns like that. So I just wanted to start that. I thought that was a really powerful shift for me. And I hope it can, I don't know if people in this group have heard it before. So I hope it can be useful as we think about doing this work moving forward. Okay, slide. And it's Edie's turn now.
Hello. So you can see this in front of you, and I'll just go ahead and quickly summarize how educators have been with this group. And it's again about educating ourselves about systematic racism in the public education system, including Connors Emerson. Also examining our own biases and how that may impact teaching. Number 3, I love cultivate the skills to engage in conversations about race and racism, not only with students, but families and colleagues. Number 4, investigate our curriculum for racism and for bias, advocate change, implement anti-racist teaching practices, and also support one another, being vigilant and identifying, combating racism. I love this group too, because I am able to go to any one of them throughout the day and just ask, I said this term or word, I'm not sure, can you help me with this? Or again, it's a good moral support as well. And again, harnessing our collective power to advocate for anti-racist policies and action at the district level and school level. Has everyone had a chance? I know I kind of whipped through those rather quickly. Have you had a chance to read those? Okay. All right. I'll move on to the next slide, Josh. And some updates. Again, we applied and received a PTSA grant for a lending library. And for resources for all staff to share, which is great. And 21 members just participated in a training about how to teach young children about race, class, gender, and whole group conversations about the importance of Black History Month and plans on how to make it a little bit more effective next year. And also this one provided resources to school staff about racist imagery and Dr. Seuss books and alternative texts. And again, that's just providing, I love Dr. Seuss or certain works of him. And it's just about educating yourself about this and having the knowledge about that. So those are some of our updates and what we've been up to, and we welcome questions, comments.
Yeah, that's all we have. So I'm on for questions. Marie.
I'm trying to read it. The workshop by Cass Minor, is that something that you were able to, 21 folks, that's an awesome chunk of people. Were you able to, are you yet able to find a way to sort of report out and like share that knowledge with other folks that maybe weren't able to attend, or sort of capture some of the highlights? Is that something that is, I know it's a lot of extra work as well, but are you able to find a way to share that with other folks?
No, not yet. That was the one Barb mentioned, the Never Too Young to Think. Social, she called it social literacy. I wasn't able to go to the debrief. So I don't know what came out of that one, if what people want to share. One thing I was really excited about with that is how many non-EAR members were excited to do that training, because I think it speaks to the energy. Like if people on staff aren't able to commit to being in the group, that doesn't mean they're not committed to this work. So I very much appreciated that the school supported this and paid for all of us to do this, and that it could be a nice mix. I think, Marie, maybe like that's even a larger question about how are we allowing opportunities to share what we've learned for people to drop in various ways. And I think that's maybe an ongoing thing for our group to think about, like, making it public and inviting people in.
When the, hold on one second. Go ahead, Julie, you go first and then I'll have a question.
Well, I just wanted to add to the answer around funding. So the principals and I have worked really closely to figure out how to both share, make available, encourage, and pay for what we see as valuable opportunities around these issues, and lots of inviting. So lots of different entry points for people, depending, so that it doesn't go away. It wasn't just the first time. So we have used a lot of federal grant money towards this and wrote the project so that we could do that. And to the point where I'll pay for 20 something people, and then I'll say to Barb, do you have any money to pay for 2 more? I can't get that out of this piece, and vice versa. So it's been a collaborative support from the school and the district working together.
So my comment or question is kind of like talking out of both sides, because my first thought when I read your goals was, I love how your goals are structured that, rather than this immediate, like, let's jump in and tell everybody what to change, that your goals are, first, let's educate ourselves, let's examine ourselves, and then start to change. And I love that whole, that process that you're going through. And which I think, we all probably need to go through. And that's what brings me to my second comment is not even to be argumentative, just, obviously we all grew up with Dr. Seuss, and I just saw on the news for the first time today, Loudoun County, Virginia, which is near where I grew up, has banned Dr. Seuss from their schools. And that's the first I ever heard of these issues. And so I think when you wonder, like you make these statements here, like we're educating the school staff, but how are we going to educate our families as to what is happening in the school? Because if my child came home and said, they've banned Dr. Seuss from school, and I know that's not what you all are saying, I would be like, what? And so I think it all has to work together, like how, and we talked about this at the AOS meeting after the Anti-Racism Task Force gave their update, is how do we use these resources to further the education, whether it's just to invite people to into the conversation that disagree or don't agree, just so it's not so shocking, or people feel like you're changing everything, nobody asked me, and I don't know how we get those, we need, that's the next step. Obviously we're working on ourselves. Like, it's like your smaller goals, like our goals to educate, and you all educate yourselves. And I think the board needs to do the same thing, learn more, educate ourselves, find out what's happening so that we can pass it on to our community. And, so much work to do in this area that, thank you for starting it anyway. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There wasn't a question there, but go ahead.
I think those are really good points, Christy. It's so funny. It's like my answer is like a little bit related to what to what Marie brought up, like that there's people in the group who are thinking like really about their own classrooms and their own curriculum. And then there's people who are really thinking about how do we connect across, like as a school community, around culture goals, right? Or Black History Month, or, I think Dr. Seuss came up because his birthday is coming up. And that has historically been like a big celebration. And so rather than like, ban all Dr. Seuss books, I think people were thinking maybe a good first step was to like problematize this person. And the MEA, the NEA, the National Education Association, has called it like Read Across America Week. So like, how do we, exactly what you're saying, like how do we move between like our micro level to the bigger level of the school, and exactly to the family level? How are we inviting staff in and sharing what we're learning? How do we share what we're doing with parents? And there's definitely some people in the group who are like ready to take that step and are kind of doing that work, and some people who are thinking more, just people thinking at all different levels. It's nice to have so many people, like with 32 people, you can kind of like, people can go where they're interested. But
I mean, you guys have to be thoughtful too, because obviously you're not going to go everywhere and have everybody agree with you, and so you have to prepare for those presentations.
Right.
To put yourself out there is a big step, and so we're not expecting you to carry that whole load for sure. But it's just it's a lot of work to be done. Sure.
It's nice to feel like we're taking steps. Like I agree with you. It is a lot of work, but like it's so empowering to have this community and to be able to take, like, even if they're just small steps together, it feels good. It's really exciting.
Marie.
I just want to say again, it's really clear to me after having heard the second presentation how important these school-based groups are. I know that we have the district-wide task force, and I know that you're feeding in your ideas eventually or concurrently are feeding into that work. But the work that I'm seeing you all doing in terms of numbers and immediate building-based connections and immediate classroom connections and immediate kid connections is so invaluable. So thank you so much for really doing it. And, I think across the district, there are a couple of other building-based groups that were around way before we did the task force that are also engaged in a really micro level. And I would just say, I think that is a fantastic way to keep doing this. It's clear that this work is relevant, immediate. You're impacting the people that you want to impact immediately, because you're with your colleagues and you're with your teachers. So, wow, this is just fantastic. I can't believe I'm getting this much more information. I think they just reported on last month. So to see this kind of this stuff, you guys are all like working together through the financial support of Julie and just you guys on the ground. It's been really great. So thank you so much for doing that again.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lily.
I know this is just more work, but I'm super impressed with the Tiger newsletter and was thinking that, one way to, this just came into my head right now, but that one way to really get beyond the students to their families would be through that newsletter, and possibly partnering with the Islander, and maybe getting, sorry, my bird, maybe getting some of the older kids to help put stuff on social media. Just every avenue we can, because it's so awesome that it's happening in schools, but it so needs to happen outside of schools too. So, and I know that's like you said, you're starting where you are, and it's incredible. And again, if there's anything I can do or we can do as a school board, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And, not like we all have tons and tons of time, but I'm sure we could find time to do whatever it is you need us to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There was talk in the outreach subgroup about the newsletter and how to tie. So you guys should be in a subgroup. You guys are like doing all the work. And I think it came up maybe at the last meeting about some folks wanting to drop in, and I think that would be great if some school board members, if you want to shoot me or Anna or an email about like setting up a time to come, I think, if you're so encouraging, and I think it could be cool for you to see it. I think people would be excited about that.
Mark.
Thanks, Christy. Rachel and Edie, thanks. I want to appreciate the work you guys are doing, and it's nice that it can be tailored to a school-based piece. And I know you folks are conscious of this, and I appreciate it. I just want to give a shout out also to you continuing to keep Julie and I in the loop so we can continue to support you guys and have continuity across our schools. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll just also add that it's always great to have teachers come to our meetings. We don't hear from teachers nearly enough, like groups like this. And, we hear a lot about all the great things teachers are doing from Julie and from Barb, but it's so great to have you come and share your enthusiasm for the things you're doing. And, I'll give a little shout out here. I don't know if you guys saw the wonderful interview that Kate Meyer and Wendy Littlefield did with Chris Popper. And it was just so uplifting to listen to our teachers talk and see how they're feeling. We obviously, we do hear a lot from you all in negative times and negative, which we want to hear as well. But it's so nice to have you come and share your enthusiasm for your jobs and your students and what you're doing and what your passions are. So thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Sure. Anytime. It's much better than talking about the budget, which is what we're going to do next. Thank you. You guys are welcome to stay if you want to talk about the budget.
Yeah, please join us.
I think I'm going to head outside for a walk, whether it's raining or not. I was in the building all day long.
I waited all day for that rain to stop, and of course it stopped at like 4:15. So much for that.
Good
I
luck with the
walked
budget.
in the rain, Christy.
I know. I'm not doing it. All right. Well, let's move on. Were there not really changes to the budget? This was just refiguring, right, Barb? Like changing the presentation?
Part of it is changing the presentation as per requested by the town council to make sure that all of the new items are embedded in the lines. And then there was an additional amount of money added to the state subsidy. So we've added an additional $25,000 so that the total appropriation with the additional items is a 6.06% increase, or it works out to be $22.81 per $100,000 valuation, I should say.
And do we need to re-vote on this budget?
No, because your line item is the same. Your bottom line is that accurate, Mark? That's what I was told, but I want to make
Yes,
sure.
it is. It is accurate, Barb. And I can phone Nancy if anybody has any questions, but that is correct.
And I don't know, we, Barb and I met and Nancy, was Nancy there? Yes, Barb and Nancy and I met with the town council,
Mhm.
a preliminary review of this budget. And I don't know if we talked to you, that was one of the criticisms, I would say in a nice way, of our budget was that we had left those additional items out. And some council members were annoyed that they weren't up in their budget line items. You know, it was in there, but
And
they
we
thought we were sneaky, but we were trying to be more
transparent.
open,
Yeah.
but it didn't go over. So that was one of the reasons for redoing the budget, putting the additional items in the lines that they belong in. There was a little concern. They want to go back and look at our CIP spending and, what are we doing with that money? We're not worried with just, we didn't have all those facts and figures right there with us. And then tomorrow, the education subcommittee of the warrant committee has asked for a Zoom meeting. I told I will attend and Barb, and I'm not sure if I can make it, but we'll meet with that education subcommittee of the warrant committee. And then as I think later you've got down here, the full meeting with the warrant committee is March 22nd. The way it always works, where you go meet with the warrant committee and then you follow that up meeting with the joint warrant and town council, and then the town council, so we'll play it by ear here, but you're all welcome to attend any of those meetings if you want.
And to be clear, the warrant subcommittee really was just finalized today. It got past them, I think, is a polite way of saying it. And Michael Good is on the road, so we're doing it by Zoom. But I'm looking forward to having a chance to meet with him. We have probably half new members. No, I'm sorry, only one new member. Somebody Reed, Carolyn Reed, maybe. But we have Bob Chaplin on the subcommittee, John Kelly on the subcommittee, and Michael Good. And they have been on the subcommittee for the last couple of years.
Any
When
questions?
is that meeting tomorrow?
It's tomorrow at 4, and Josh, I can have Josh send anybody a link that would like to attend. But I know you all are so busy too, so I think the real important ones tend to be the big meetings with the entire warrant committee or the entire town council.
Is it still in the changes? I've lost track of when the changes to the charter are, that there won't be a review with the education subcommittee? Or are we still in the old version of that? And
We're still in the old version of that. We're still in the old version of that. And my understanding is that there is actually going to be a vote at the June town meeting whether or not to continue with the warrant committee.
What do you mean?
Like at all?
At all, yeah. I'm getting some mixed information that the town council feels like, I guess, that it's redundant, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anyone, but the feeling for the education subcommittee, to be really clear, is the fact that the school committee looks at the budget, the town council looks at the budget, so the warrant committee is just, redundant. And my feeling is, boy, it's so powerful when the school board's saying yes, the warrant committee's saying yes, and the town council are all saying yes. I think it really reassures town folks when they come to the town meeting. And I think it's transparent, Well,
I also feel like you're looking at the budget for different things. The school committee is not necessarily looking at the budget from only from tax implications. You're looking to see what's best for your students and how to provide for your students and your teachers and your school. Where the warrant committee is looking out for the town of it's just a different approach to examine.
Right.
The question is different, and I don't necessarily. I think when I don't necessarily think that oversight is a bad thing, but
no.
know.
So we'll see.
I don't think there can ever be too many eyes on a budget. And I've voiced my feelings to all the town council
Yeah.
about that. I don't want to see that end for us.
Well, I think the transparency has always been so great, is because, and I do believe that, when you have a town meeting and people are all unanimous behind it, then the townsfolk have confidence that it's a good budget, and there's not a lot of pushback. So,
I just also, I agree with all that as well. It just also builds communication and positive momentum along the way, because it's just
Yep.
another time that we're able to help really micro educate people, a group of people on the budget, which gives you more, there's, instead of being 4 people in a town hall meeting of like 700 people, there's like 42 people that sort of have really taken a deep dive into it. And most normal people don't want to take a deep dive into it. But when it's passed to a committee, they're required to do that, and that's their job. Yeah, I think it's weird that we're all sort of in agreement about that, and yet still that recommendation isn't being maybe considered in the same way. But anyway.
I don't know. I don't delve into town politics, but there's a lot of things being proposed when there's no public meetings that seem weird, but push through. But anyway, and I think that's any other questions on that budget and where we're sitting with the budget?
I, of course, have my normal general question about, as I keep seeing potential for funds coming through. I know that a long time ago when, I mean, maybe it wasn't a long time ago, it just seems that time is moving so slowly these days. When there was an indication that there would be a second or a third version of CARES funding that's coming out with the budget, Mark had suggested that there would be some unilateral discussions going on and unilateral planning across the district, which obviously you can't do yet because we don't have anything to make any plans on. But are you already, is that still happening behind the scenes? You have like scenario A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 11, 29, whatever.
We've certainly talked some about it, but we are not anywhere near close to having scenario 1, 2, 3. We just did do some work with the ESSER funds that I'm not sure if Julie's still on, but she could speak to. And that was in collaboration with the district.
Christie?
Yep, Mark, go ahead.
The good news, Marie, is that the timeline is much more thoughtful for us. So the short answer is that, yes, we've begun having the conversations, and all of the principals and Julie, Nancy, myself, we're on the same page. Before we make a move, we're going to do so collectively. So, but as Barb said, we haven't done it in depth yet because we just don't know what the numbers are, but we're poised to be able to be strategic.
Well, I just hope that there, in the same way that there are different priorities and different needs at each school. I appreciate the district-wide collaborative effort, but I also want to be, I mean, that doesn't supplant the different needs that are going to be at different schools, whether it's space needs or, we need another teacher or whatever. So.
Julie, go ahead.
Two things. One is that the district needs are being built from the people and budget needs of each of the buildings. So for example, a lot of the discussion right now is on collaborative programming that will ultimately be more helpful, I think, and also on helping each of the schools in flexible ways like you're talking about, Marie. So if we're sharing a resource, but then are able to allocate it the way it's needed at the different schools, that allows for that flexibility. And the second is, I think you're right on with space needs and people needs that, as we get a clearer understanding of next year of what the requirements are going to be, of whether space needs are going to be similar, in terms of physical distancing, and all those things are going to impact each building differently. So in terms of personnel and in terms of space, those are going to have to be the priorities for, to make sure that each building gets what it needs in order to be able to open full time for as many students as possible.
Any other questions about the budget or COVID funds? 1 minute. So we don't have any action items. And under other business, I just want to go back and ask you a question, Barb, and this is kind of relates to Julie's point just now. You know, when you were talking about, you know, the wait list for third grade, are you still meeting with the building-based safety team? And is there any thought, like, you know, when the guidelines were released by the state for elementary school or the K through 4, they had recommended a 3-foot distance, but we had said, well, we're going to go with the 6-foot, and I totally agreed with that at the time. Was there any revisiting that for the remainder of the school year to try to open up those classrooms or discussion?
There certainly has been discussion, and honestly, when you get into the classrooms, there's probably closer to a 4-foot separation because, and in some cases, really 3 feet. The teachers are now feeling a little bit more comfortable pulling kids to the back table. We've got some, you know, clear plastic barricades and things like that. Whereas when we first started, we were really measuring 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. The challenge becomes where we're still eating in the classrooms, trying to maintain the 6 feet without a mask. And that is a hiccup for some of the staff. So, and we've got 12 to 13 in classrooms that can accommodate it.
Right. That makes sense.
Yep.
Barb, can you repeat what you just said? You've got 12 to 13. I missed that part. Is that
12 to 13 students in the classroom. And so when you're trying to keep a 6-foot space, like a 6-foot bubble around each one while they eat without their masks, you know, we're moving desks and table areas and things like that. And it you know, it's goes quick. The space goes quick when you go in there because you're looking at it on paper. You might have a square footage that looks fine, but then you have to go in and realize, well, there's a closet, there's this, you know, there are cupboards, and you lose a lot of square footage so that you don't always get the same number of students in a room that you would think you would.
Go ahead, Lily.
I just have a
Go.
comment and a question. I'm so thrilled to see all these and hear about all these incredible things that our kids are doing and that our teachers are doing with them. But really, how are our kids doing? Are we meeting their mental health needs, their, you know, emotional needs, or like, how are our Connors Emerson kids really doing? I mean, I know how it's so easy to show all the great things, and I just
I think I guess I would answer it this way. I am amazed that they're doing as well as they're doing. They are thrilled to be able to see their friends, take the bus, you know, go on some of these field trips. We certainly have changed the way the day runs. So it's a little bit, they're outside more often. There are more breaks in their programming. There are some kids that have struggled at different times. And mostly it's around the anxiety. And so between Edie Dubois and Carol Rosinski and Melissa Veith and lots of other staff, we're I think managing it, what we know. We've identified some kids that we think just need a mentor because they're having a rough time. So Dan Granholm and Brian Dion have stepped up and are working with our guys. And, you know, then we have Edie and Carol and Siobhan and, a whole host of people working with some of the girls. We've been able to connect students to counseling. Acadia Health, Family Health has been really helpful in doing some, telecount counseling. It's hard to say. I guess I would just leave it as I think they're doing incredibly well. And I think they're doing much better because they are in person 5 days a week than trying to navigate the hybrid situation or some of the other things. They're producing some great work. There's a calmness in the school that we haven't felt in a long time. And whether that's because we've sort of slowed things down and really put in lots of natural breaks. I don't know. It is something that we all want to look at because we've all noticed it. Or is it because each group has a separate area to be on in the play areas, and we rotate those, or is it simply that they're eating lunch in their classrooms and it's a very calm, quiet time for them to eat? Because they have their masks off, they really can't talk. So there are teachers reading, books, chapter books. There are, some videos going on, things like that. But it's a very low key lunch, with 10 or 12 of your classmates, which is very different than, 80 kids in a cafeteria getting wound up. So, it's hard to say, but I feel strongly that we're capturing the kids that we know are having some challenges. But you just never know. But I do feel, I guess I would really end it with our staff knows our kids so well. And it's because we have small class sizes, right? And so kids are feeling safe seeking out adults. I mean, I've had 2 staff members come to me last week and just say, so-and-so's having a hard time. There's some family issues going on. What can we do to support? And we can put plans in place to do that.
Barb, on that note, I would ask the same question of our teachers, and sometimes I think no news is good news. Is obviously we heard a lot from them when the anxiety and emotions and fear was common in the fall, and all of it occurred to me, a couple of weeks ago, gosh, we haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything from Brian and Amanda, and how is everybody doing, and we certainly don't want to dismiss them.
No.
Exhaustion, or is it like you just said? Is there a calmness? Are we, obviously we've weathered this so much better than we anticipated in the fall, but I'm sure people are still exhausted and struggling. And how is
yeah. What I would say to you is it was a really it was a big blow to the educators, to the all of our staff when they were taken off the 1B tier with the vaccines, and it was going strictly by age. And that created a lot of angst over the weekend.
Yep.
And so what and Amanda let me know there was a lot of emails going back and forth.
There was a lot of Facebook angst happening over the weekend.
Yep. Yeah. But what I also said was that where I have to find it. I did send out an email today and just wanted to say, when you look at where we're at as a state, we're 4th, the lowest in the nation. We're only Vermont, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico are below us, and not by much. I mean, we're right there with them. When you look at the state I think is 300. I was just looking for my numbers. I think it's 329 per 10,000. Hancock County is like 189 or 179. And so, when you look at, okay, the state is the 4th lowest. Hancock County is probably among, I would say, the below half of what is happening in the state, maybe even lower, may rank, 3 or 4 in county lineup rather, than higher. I think we're doing great, and I do believe that things are changing quickly. I mean, nobody anticipated that the state of Maine would be vaccinating 60-year-olds this month. So I am hopeful that it will continue to, move quickly.
Well, and with that new vaccine was released today, Johnson & Johnson, so that can only help load them up everywhere else. So
yeah. It's actually, I just found it. The current rate for the state of Maine is 329 per 10,000 people. For the case rate in Hancock County is 162. So I would say we're at the bottom quartile. If the average is 329 and we're at 162. So, and I just remind people that we have plenty of PPE supplies if they're in need. If people want a double mask, we have masks up. We just have tons of KN95 masks. We give them out in 5 packs. I mean,
And I'm sure it just is very demoralizing when you felt like people were appreciating the risk group that you were in, and then to take it away is
Yeah.
yeah, awful. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think the anxiety, crept in because there were, some positive cases. There were kids that were quarantined, not positive cases in the school, but quarantined because of being, a close contact. I think that added to it. But again, when you look at science, when you look at what we're seeing, we're not seeing transmission in the schools amongst students and staff. And I'll only speak for our district, but that's the reality. So we have to take some comfort there, I think, too.
yes, Lily.
I listen to the briefings most often, and Dr. Shaw answered that question from a teacher. And, I understand the reality, but I also understand that the fragility of the anxiety and, issues that teachers have. And I was talking with a board member from another school in our district, and we were talking about whether or not it would be helpful, or would it mean anything if we collectively as school boards wrote to the state in support of trying to get teachers in a different place? I mean, I know I personally was up there in 1B as a grocery store worker, but now I'm like, until 50 and older I have to wait, which is fine with me. I would give my place to a teacher any day, but I don't know. I don't feel like the state has really any wiggle room to change their way, but I don't know, maybe it wouldn't hurt to try.
I think there was an announcement by Janet Mills as part of that announcement to try and expedite the vaccinations to the people who have met the age, for any teachers to try to find ways to make sure that if you're of the age to get the vaccine, that you're expedited. So, I mean, there is some thought there. It's not, the best answer if you're 25 or 30, but go ahead, Mark.
I don't want to cause anybody to have, excited hope, but I have a meeting with the hospital tomorrow on this topic, which suggests to me that the planning piece is very close to the implementation piece. So I'm very, very encouraged by that. And talking to other superintendents around the state, the relationship we have with the hospital and the planning, the surveying we've done so far to have our folks ready to go when it becomes available, position us really, really well, and position us well, even better than many of our colleague districts in Hancock County. I'm very encouraged by that. And so I will continue to keep you folks updated on those next steps, but I think we're getting really, really close. To your point, Lily, I would never discourage anybody from advocating with elected officials. I think that's important. But I think that this particular piece, as I've studied the question, it's really about supply. And I think what our governor is doing, and you probably know that every state has a different plan. Well, I shouldn't say every state, most states have different plans and different tiers. And so it really is within the purview of the governor, but I think either way, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm fairly confident that before we end this school year, our employees will be undercover. I believe that. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm very encouraged by that. And I think if we, that along with our asymptomatic testing and the things that we're doing, we can be really proud of our community and our staff. I think we're going to be okay, but I'll keep you guys posted. I'm hopeful good news is going to come out. And the other piece is this, and I said this carefully, anybody that can get a vaccination using the system, they should move forward and do so. They don't have to wait for the school. The only thing we're asking is that if you do get a vaccination, notify the hospital. And the other thing that people need to know is wherever you get your vaccination, if you go to Fort Kent, you're going back to Fort Kent. You know, that's just, you need to people need to understand there's no trading off. So it's a very, very tight system. But I'll have more information tomorrow. Thanks.
Any other business?
Just one, while we were talking, one of the staff texted me and said, yes, please write to the governor or the government. So I just wanted to mention that.
And then future agenda items, obviously, we're going to have the building renovation project. Any other, what's next month is April. You know, can I circle back to other business and just to, because I was going to throw this on future agenda items. When are we posting, Mark, for that transportation director?
So that it's interesting because I was having this conversation the other day. So technically the AOS budget is passed. However, the AOS budget is contingent upon all the budgets. So I was going to ask the board, the AOS board, permission to post the position after the April break or within the April, with the caveat subject to approval, subject to the budget approval process. It's a start date of 1 July. So I really would like to get out there to begin the process. Obviously, anybody, you know, if approved, anything has to come before the board, but nobody's going to be starting until midsummer. And I think if we wait, I just get worried that we're not going to have the best process if we don't start sooner. But I'm also very, very conscious of not sending unintended messages, you know, with regard to the budget process. So that was a request I was going to bring forward in April.
I just, you know, I feel like every day it just gets kind of demonstrated again and again how much money we're spending on this bus contract and how few children are riding the bus. And I know it's COVID and that might change next year. We might have to reevaluate, but, you know, I had a high school friend, you know, point out a couple of days ago that her son rides the bus all by himself to and from school. One kid on a bus. And this morning, as I waited in a line 100 cars long to get Connors Emerson, you know, obviously because it was pouring rain and nobody was walking, you know, a bus pulled in right in front of me with 2 kids on it. And I thought, this is crazy. This is crazy how much money we pay out for these buses and how underutilized they are. And maybe it's something we take to parents. And, you know, obviously we have to provide transportation, but it's almost crazy the money we're spending at all levels to have empty buses driving around. We could get a minivan and fit the same number of kids in there next year when we're not socially distant. But
we're very siloed. You folks as board members know that. And our system as an AOS is not conducive to efficiency in this area. And no, there's no question that there's a better way.
I have super high hopes that the transportation director can, I don't know, get this on his radar quickly, because obviously our contract's up and we're beginning the new negotiation. And so
it has to be one of the highest priorities for this individual. He or she has to be ready to hit the ground running on that. And then the next tier is certainly the maintenance, logistics, and the support for the principals. Those are the highest priorities.
Right. Marie.
Yeah, I would say the third thing that is, I think, super important about the bus is not just the money and not just the emptiness, but the bus schedule is impacting academic learning. You know, we're talking about receiving a proposal from the high school to move the start time because our bus schedule is such that we have to get, you know, we have to pick them up at the crack of dawn and they have to sit around at school for an hour. I mean, that's, to me, that's the most egregious thing, you know, that we've got to figure out is, so we're going to change, you know, one reason we may need to change the system is because, when kids start is because we can't figure out how to get the kids there closer to when school opens. The other thing is, as I've said before, I will continue to be saying, when you're a high school student right now and you have 2 days in school, if there isn't a weather day, you lose your day of school, because once again, our bus schedule is such that our buses can't pick up our kids and bring them to school for the late start time. So they have to stay at home and be remote. So I would say there's 3 really huge, important priorities, is to fix the schedule so that we can, there's no reason on this island or even off in Trenton that a kid has to be picked up at 6 o'clock in the morning for school to start at 8 o'clock. So, with the 2 things that Christy said, I would say those are the 3 most important things. They are all impacting student learning. They're all impacting academic time. They're all impacting our budgets. And there's got to be an easier way and a better way to do this.
And I know there's some people opposed to like putting kindergartners on a bus with a junior in high school, but I think it could be done. I think you could have one bus route for elementary and high school, and I think there could be separation of the ages, but I feel like there are out of the box solutions that maybe we never have time to delve into. And there was that transportation subcommittee that started that work, which led us to hiring a transportation director, which like just in this conversation, we so need someone who can sit down and draft out multiple ideas and work on it and come up with a plan. And so I'm hopeful for the transportation director. So back to any other future agenda items. I was thinking the bus contract as well. All right, so the meeting dates on there, you see those council meetings and warrant committee meetings. And I would just want, since so teachers are messaging Barb, I just want to throw out to anybody watching to, stay tuned to the upcoming AOS level meetings, because it's that time of year where we start discussing the calendar and what school's going to look like next year. And a lot of those policies now are at the AOS level. They're not necessarily getting in-depth conversations here at the local level. And so I hope that people who are impacted by those and would pay attention to those meetings as well and give their voice to that conversation coming up. Mark.
Yes, that's probably a really good segue. I don't want any board member or any parent to get nervous. On Monday, we're going to be having a discussion of the calendar. I'm sending out some talking points, a very, very draft. It doesn't include all of the components, but for me, I just finished a meeting with the principals and the association presidents where we had a conversation. I think it's important to have a conversation with the board. I think it's important to incorporate feedback from parents, from students, and then we take that time on Monday to get those discussion points out there, collect that information, listen carefully, and then I can provide through the administrative team recommendations for the board's consideration in April. So I don't want anybody to get nervous about the timeline. This is about a discussion to be very open and transparent, and we want the feedback. We want to hear from parents, we want to hear from teachers, we want to hear from board members. So I just appreciate the opportunity to say that, Christy. I don't want anybody to get nervous to think that I've heard some rumors out there from people that the calendar is a done deal or we're doing this or that. The calendar is not a done deal until the board decides what they're going to do with the calendar. And in order for the board to decide, I think it's important they consider all that feedback. So we're committed to getting it. Thank you.
Okay, so our next meeting will be Monday, April 5th at 4:30. And I'm sure we'll still be Zooming. So hopefully if the kids can go back in the fall, we can go back in the fall as well, because I miss seeing you guys all live. And I feel like that we've done a great job discussing, but it's hard to have really quality discussions here on Zoom. And so I do look forward to, welcoming people back to our meetings, parents and teachers and you all. So, okay, if I can get a motion to adjourn, we will adjourn. Anybody wants
Motion.
Dwayne?
to get a
Second. Martha.
Robin Sue, who's been very quiet. Meeting.
Lily's bird wants to have a discussion.
All right.
All the time behind you. I feel like it's so funny.
Well, I changed my background so you can't see him. I learned how to do it, but now I don't know how to change it back. So
I'm gonna come over and teach your bird some words.
Just
Right.
people say approve, and then you can
oh yeah.
totally like sit back and do nothing.
Do we need to vote on adjourning or can we just adjourn? We need to vote?
You can adjourn. You can
I
adjourn.
approve.
We don't have to vote? Everybody approve, say aye.
Approved. Good, good.
All right.